Hello and welcome to an unexpected podcast. My name is Tim, and with me, as always, we have Rainier, Devin, Matt, Evan, and Rob. On this week's episode, we're kind of
room. That's crazy. That hasn't happened in 18 months?
It hasn't happened in an age.
So for anyone watching and seeing the screen, we have four of the channel people together. That's because they're at a tournament. This is the replacement tournament for Nova. So we thought it'd be kind of interesting to
Temporary
do
replacement, mind you. I don't want to imply Nova's not coming back up.
This year's replacement, I should say. This year's replacement. And so they decided to just do an episode in person. And so me and Rainier have joined in on them. So we're going to be talking about how the tournament's going for them on day one, as well as answer a couple questions later on in the episode. So I'll turn it over to you guys if you guys want to talk about how it's going and maybe lists or anything like that. So floor is yours.
Yeah, we can.
Well, actually, before we do that, because Rainier's on a limited time here, and I know he had a question. So do we want to swing it over to Rainier? You can ask the question.
Yeah. So my first question is, there's a long-lasting, I guess, rivalry between East Coast groups. I know, I know Philadelphia sent a delegation. So just if ever, I'm just curious how they're doing. And that would include Alisher, Amanoff, Derek Arnold, and Joshua Brown.
So
Alisher
that could really on top tables right now. Because he beat Ted Cantu. For those of you who don't know, he's actually a pretty solid player actually in this area. He just beat him in the last round. And he actually beat Evan.
Yeah, he did in the first round.
I'm like pointing at you.
And he beat Rob.
Yeah, he just beat Rob.
Everybody beat Rob. So that's
nowhere. I was just at work, and here he comes and hits him with a stick.
So Philly's representing pretty well, and that's it. Derek is Derek doing all right.
Derek hit me second round and lost.
Yeah.
See, but I don't know what happened after that or before that.
Yeah, I think he just accepted. Yeah, I think he definitely took some losses. And then who was the last person you said?
Josh Brown or Joshua Brown.
I'd have to look at his scorecard. I feel bad not knowing off of his name.
That's okay. I'm just curious. Just had to give a shout out.
We have one of the judges in the room said he actually lost his last round.
Okay.
He's doing all right.
That's good. Good for them.
So
that's good.
Alisher and Jacob Hall. Jacob Hall should be a lot more familiar for some people, but him being overseas and such. But they're on top tables right now.
Nice. Sounds good.
So it's Philly versus DCHL as of current. So
okay, we can continue.
Beat us on our home turf, and we can beat you guys.
We pumped him with steroids before, actually, to be honest.
Oh man!
The special batch from South Korea, I sent it.
So for the rest of the time, we're going to talk about how the doubles tournament went, right?
Yeah, probably.
All right, y'all continue.
All right, so the game, tournament start as they all do. I mean, we got I guess we can start with the doubles.
We can start with the doubles.
Evan, how was your doubles?
Well, yeah, we took Mordor and Corsairs.
Mordor and Corsairs.
Because he was taking Corsairs, I was taking Mordor to singles, so we just decided to mesh them together. And yeah, it went well. We ended up.
So for first round, because they're doing kind of reverse seeded pairings. So he paired us with
Jacob Hall,
Jake Hall, and Dave McGarvey in the first round. So we were fighting. We were playing the what is that scenario?
Duel of Wits.
Duel of Wits, right?
Yeah.
Which is the one where you each team starts at opposite corners on the board, and you're all there's an objective in the middle, and you each nominate a hero from the other side's team that you're trying to kill. And the way you get points in this scenario, or at least the way you get most of your points, is either by killing the hero you nominated or getting the hero that the other side nominated to the center of the board. And Jake had a spider list, which was the Spider Queen and a bunch of spiders. Dave McGarvey had the Witch King on Fell Beast and a bunch of orcs.
On brand.
And Evan and I, just in case we ran into Dave and Jake first round had gotten together and said, all right, so what we're going to do is we're going to concentrate on the spiders and try and kill all the spiders before Dave showed up. So that was what we did. And Jake kind of put his guys in a clump within 12 and the setup is weird. You can set up anywhere in your corner of the table, but not within 12 inches of the center. So you end up with this kind of this square, this 2 foot by 2 foot square that you can set up in with this kind of bite out of the corner near the center of the board. And what we did is, basically I set up all my guys facing Jake. Evan set up all his guys facing Jake. And, Jake kind of looked to the right and saw a gun line of Corsairs, and looked to the left and saw a whole bunch of orcs and a Witch King, and decided to make a run toward me. And unfortunately, the Spider Queen, who is his only hero, ran into the gun line and died in the first turn from crossbows. And after that, kind of Dave valiantly tried to ride to Jake's defense. But I don't think they had kind of read the scenario through, because after a while they hadn't killed any of our heroes.
That's
so we knew
also
our guy
standard
was alive.
for Jake, by the way. I did not read this.
And I knew I'd killed the Spider Queen, who was my person, and I was fairly sure Evan would have chosen it too, based on our discussions. But then Dave and Jake just kind of ran back to the center of the board and sat there. But because we killed their heroes, they got no points for being in the center of the board. And, we just kind of took the rest of our guys, backed off and stared at them. And that was we did a little fighting this way and that, but, that was how it ended with I think a 4-0 for us.
Yeah.
And then proceeded to win the rest of the doubles.
So we proceeded to win the rest of the doubles.
Yeah.
So who did we play?
Well, keep in mind, most people may not know a lot of the names.
Yeah, it was Tom Clucci and Bill Goodrick.
Oh yeah, we played Tom Clucci and Bill Goodrick, which was a fun battle. They're great people to play with.
Tom's a lot of fun to play.
Tom is a lot of fun to play against.
Also a great painter.
And so that was the double scenario where you each start in two corners and you run to the middle.
Yeah, and we had March and they didn't.
We had March,
so we got into the middle, walled off with our billions of black Numenorians, and just kind of
and shot them with and Tom Clucci had around at the first round after they broke. We were counting they had over 20 figures run off the table.
Yeah, it was horrible.
So that ended quickly.
I mean, we also killed Kardouche and the Witch King in one hurl.
That's
as
true.
Well.
That was also fun.
Our Witch King on Felbeast flew over, hurled through their Kardouche and the Witch King. They'd both taken a lot of damage from crossbows. And Kardouche had one wound left, and the Witch King was out of fate, and wounded him off of the hit from the hurl on Kardouche, and then the hits killed the Witch King.
All right, and then the third game was
I'm blanking.
Yeah, I know. Boy, this seems like it was like a month ago now.
It was
yesterday.
The Clash of Champions or whatever it's called, the one where your heroes are getting kills.
Oh right.
Against the
Gallagher
Kirith
Ungol Legendary Legion
with 0 spearmen. Oh no, 1 spearman because the shaman had a spear.
And 0 shooting. And so that was a scenario where we got to sit at the back of the board and shoot them as they came in. But probably the less said about that the better. Sorry, Gallagher brothers. That was stacked against you from the beginning.
Yeah.
Okay, so
the GT, I suppose. Well, I suppose you want to talk about the elephant in the room sort of situation.
Oh yeah. Okay.
I don't know. I didn't know if you want to talk about.
All right. So that was the thing we wanted to talk about. That was
So basically, and we're just gonna sum this up really fast because they tried a thing here at this tournament, which for all of you listening out there, you probably shouldn't try this.
Kids, don't try this at home.
They tried a thing, which I understand the point of it, but they wanted to see different players reaching top tables. So they purposely rigged the first round so that way Matt would go against Jake and Evan would go against Alisher, whom is one of Philly's best guys. So they purposely did it and admitted it to them that they rigged the round to do that. But now, so while that might seem a good idea in theory, and there's ways you could execute that, I think it wouldn't be so bad if you didn't surprise them with it. It does create.
We do the challenge rule in the Pennsylvania events where we allow players to submit a challenge like months in before the tournament, and whoever, if they accept the challenge, that you play them first round. And it's a way of kind of naturally getting top players who are competitive to play against each other in a fun way, but they do it as their choice. It creates some like hype about the tournament. And through the process also like this, it causes the good players to go against each other. So they're not, I guess, like smacking on people that are less experienced.
See, that's one of the better ways to do it, right? Like, because they know in advance, right? Like, so I know we did tournaments, and I know I've thought about ways where you can just have players vote on who they want to fight first round or whatever. So it's not uncommon, by the way, to rig the first round. I know I do it every single Nova, but everyone knows about it, right? Like, if you travel together, you don't fight each other first round. I'm rigging pairings. Like, I mean, that's basically what that is. So, I mean, rigging pairings is super normal, but probably should make players aware that's going to happen.
I'm not sure I would call that rigging, though. That's more like modifying.
Modifying. I mean, technically, though,
if carpools not play each other isn't like rigging the event.
Well, if you think about it, though, if Jake is like one of the better players in this area and you traveled with Jake, then now you won't be fighting.
Well,
it's a rig.
Well,
I get where Rob's coming from, though. Because, I mean, in theory, right, it makes sense because, you don't want to play the same people over again. But if by chance, random draw, Evan happened to get Matt in the first round of Nova, you take away that possibility, if that makes sense. So you take away.
You are helping almost eliminate. With a 5-round tournament, you can submarine depending on how you do. So you could almost make it where you make it easier to get at least top placement, maybe not number 1, but top 3. By now, you just said so. Matt lost his first round, so theoretically, he's going down into the lower, and now he's getting massive swings, massive wins because he's fighting easier opponents and crushing them.
Although that didn't happen in the third round.
Oh yeah.
Oh, what happened?
We can talk about.
I don't know over every single round, but that was probably the more interesting thing. But barring that, actually, the tournament's going well, and you got the usual Nova terrain. You got the we got 34 players attending, so that's pretty good considering a just post-COVID event up here in the Northeast. Everything else is fine. Hiccups as all tournaments have, but other than that, it's going well. So and your boys are going against our boys. I mean, I think overall it's solid. It's just that one little thing where it's like, all right, probably could do that a little differently.
Yeah, I mean, we shouldn't put too much thing. I mean, the odds are that I was going to play Jake eventually at some point anyway, and we got it out of the way.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah, exactly. If it's not round 1, it's round 4.
With that said, I mean, it was a really fun game. We were playing Command and Control, so it's the one with the 4 objectives, and I was playing.
Real quick, should you guys first go over what you guys brought and then go over the games?
Yeah, Didn't we already do that?
Well, no, I don't think we did.
Is this whole episode today just about this tournament? So, because I want to make sure we have room for any other topic.
You went over your list last.
Yeah, we went over the list last.
Yeah. Never mind. Sorry.
Jake's playing.
Example, yeah. Okay. So right. All right. So, well, I mean, to put this into a nutshell about what my list is. My list is a tribute to you, Rainier. So it's I've got a 54-figure Corsair Suladan list. I did it a little differently from the way you did. I have fewer crossbows. I've got a dozen crossbows and a captain with a crossbow. I've got Dalamir, Delgamar, and then I think I got like 45 Corsairs. And then I've got Suladan, and he's got 5 cavalry with him. So he's got 3 Serpent Riders and then 2 Heratrum Raiders with bows and spears. So we're playing Capture and Control. I deploy back because I want to get some shooting in before Gullivar comes in. So I have the back objective, I won't go into the blow by blow, but Jake comes in, there's a big, there's some shooting, there's some fighting, Gullivar's jumping back and forth. I'm not able to really effectively shoot into combat on Gullivar, but Gullivar's only killing like 1 guy a turn because I get a volunteer into him each turn. By the end of the game, we ended up, basically, the game came down to 2 combats that were actually fairly even combats, where if I won both of them, I would win the game. If Jake won both of them, he would win the game. And if we split them, it was going to be a draw. Jake won both of them. So it ended up being a 6-4, but it was really a fun game. I really enjoyed playing the game against Jake, and I think Jake did too. And it really came down to the wire in those last 2 combats. So my second fight, Rainier, was against Derek Arnold. and he's got Elrond, and he's got a whole bunch of Rivendell Knights, and then he's got Galadriel, not Galadriel Lady of Light, but the Galadriel from Lothlorien Galadriel, and a couple of pikemen and some wood elves. And he started it. We were playing Assassination, so we knew, and he's only got 2 heroes, so he knew I was going to be trying to assassinate Elrond. He correctly guessed that I'd been trying to assassinate him with Suladan, so he picked Suladan. And then it was me kind of marching through his hail of arrows as I kind of went forward with some crossbow fire support, and finally got to him at the back edge of the board, and he just kind of like went down under a storm of throwing weapon corsairs, and Elrond went down on the last turn to Dalamir, Suladan, and a bunch of their friends. And then 3rd round, I played Ian, and I want to make sure I think it's Ian Terrell. Is that his name? I think it's Ian Terrell. It's Ian.
Yes, it is. He's
from Nashville. And we were playing Retrieval. So this is the capture the flag scenario. And he has Barad-dûr with Sauron. And to sum this one up, I killed his entire army except for Sauron and ran the prize off the board. But there was nothing I could do to stop Sauron. Everything was bouncing off of him, and including, even when I was shooting into the own, when I would manage to get a guy in to fight him, and I shoot into my own combat to prevent him from barging, I couldn't even kill my own guy. So he ran the objective off the board with only Sauron remaining. And so I'm like, well, I guess
he's not broken either.
He's not broken. So I'm like, well, I guess it's a 7-7 draw. And he goes, no, I lost. I go, what do you mean you lost? He goes, my entire army isn't painted. You get the point and I don't, because the one thing they have here is
you get 1 point for painting.
And I'm like,
that's right,
dude, you are the most sportsman. Like you are getting most sportsman
for me. Yeah, exactly. He just turned his tie into a loss for painting.
Ian's such a champ. I actually played him at Nashville some years ago when he played at Arnor Horde, and he is like so nice. Nice.
That's the utmost integrity, because no one would have caught that.
Yeah, like, certainly not me. Yeah, exactly. So, so I got to hand it to you, Ian. That was kudos to you. So, all right. Well, that was my story. Do you want to tell your story?
Yeah. So I was paired against Alisher. And obviously he had Cave Drake, Spider Queen.
This is Philly's top. This is with the one who's doing the best.
He's taken the crown since I've left. We had a ceremony where we crowned him, basically.
Couple of Shatter Shamans, a regular shaman, and then like a captain and Durbers as well, and 55 models in total. So got to play with my 40 model army against 55 models in capture and control, which isn't ideal, but I'm like, okay, I can get something done off of this. I lose priority, which is fine. So he's like, okay, time to use my Shatter Shamans. He goes up, casts it, rolls 1 die to cast Tremor, gets the 5. Okay, that's 1 Tremor cast on 1 dice. Goes back, hits the Witch King. The Witch King has to burn 3 will in the might point to resist it. All right, that's fine. Second Shaman goes up, casts Tremor, casts it through the Shadow Lord and the Banner and a bunch of stuff like that. Successfully casts it on 1 die, needing a 5. By the way, this is a theme here. And gets through the Shadow Lord, kills a whole bunch of models. I think he didn't fail to kill a single one. Wounds the Shadow Lord, which he needs a 5 to do. So I fate it. I roll a 2, and I'm like, I don't want to roll a 1 on the second fate roll, so I spent the 2 might. So it did not start well. Then I'm like, okay, I can go and get these shamans that he's left open. And I was unfortunately incapable of doing basic math and realizing that despite wounding on 3s, if I charge 2 shamans with the Witch King, I won't be able to kill both of them in the same turn, unless I roll very lucky on my 2 wound roll. So I charged 2 shamans, called a heroic combat, and only killed 1 of them, which mistakenly I killed a Shatter Shaman instead of the Fury Shaman. which is what I should have killed.
Mistakes were made this game.
Yes, many mistakes were made.
Mistakes were made. The passive voice was used.
Yes.
It's a series of unfortunate events.
Yeah. And so I didn't kill the Fury Shaman, which would have made him pass all the courage tests. So now he's passing courage tests against my Black Numenorians and all that stuff. And then, of course, I lose the heroic move off on the next turn. He surrounds the Witch King. There's nothing I can do. The Witch King dies. So it was not a good start to the game, but luckily I was able to sort of claw my way back through it. Now, I did kill one of his Shatter Shamans, but of course the other one successfully cast both of his other tremors using his last 2 will, each on 1 die, rolling a 5 up. I failed to resist with the Shadow Lord both times. I took a wound both times, and therefore the Shadow Lord died. So the Shadow Lord was killed by the Shatter Shamans.
This game is depressing.
Yeah. Can you stop talking?
I know
you're like, I clawed my way back, and he killed this, and he killed this.
Yeah, I'm just like,
we always talk about how like dice.
Don't worry.
Move on.
Don't worry. This isn't over. So the game keeps going. We eventually end up breaking each other. And some stuff happens. I end up killing a couple of models, pinning some down. Spider Queen gets around into the back objective. And then it was almost the final turn. There was like 5 minutes left. And I realized I'm on more objectives than him. I can very easily win this game. And so I'm like, okay, so it was 2 turns after we broke that we played, that we rolled to see if the game ended. If on either one of those, if I had rolled a 1 or a 2, I would have been able to win. Didn't happen, which is, it happens.
And that's when he started slow playing.
Yeah, and that's what
Let's not be hasty.
So on the final turn, 2 minutes before time was called for the last turn, we started another turn, and that turn ended up being the one where I botched a couple of combats on the objectives. I lost a couple of models there, and he ended up beating me that way.
So that's integrity again, folks. Didn't slow play when he should have.
Well, all joking aside, obviously my luck was pretty bad, and that happens sometimes. But it was a really fun game. He was a good opponent. And we had a good time.
It's amazing how good opponents can make you have bad luck.
I get the worst luck against all the best opponents.
Yeah, I'm curious about that too, Evan, because you played him at a event, I think, somewhere in Pennsylvania. Do you think his skill's getting better?
Oh, Alisher?
Alisher? Oh, he's
getting
good.
Really good. He's doing a lot. And you know what? This is I think how easy it is to get him frustrated is a lot harder. Because I remember that before, but I mean, he was a lot younger then, so it made sense that would change over time.
Yeah, he knew his stuff. Like, obviously, he got a little lucky with the shamans, but whatever. And he was making all the right moves. There were a couple of things where it was like, maybe I would have done something differently, but he was really solid. He knew how to win the game. He knew his army. And,
he did rules lawyer the hell out of Ted Cantu, though. So all right. So this was a funny one. Ted had Emerhill with a lance and a sword. And so naturally he shatters the sword and he knocks Emerhill off the horse. So he's still got his lance. And so he's like, don't you have to drop it? And Ted's like, no. And the rule book verbatim says, when you're knocked off your horse, you ordinarily discard the lance. That's what it says.
But the situation is not ordinary.
Yeah. So then he was like, well, is he unarmed?
How have I never caught something that ambiguous?
Right? I was just like, so I'm like, all right, so that implies May drop the lance. And so he was.
If only we had a lawyer here.
Yeah, exactly. I would have called Trevor. You're in the middle of the game. I was like, "Where's the actual?"
That has to be a dice off, right? Because you could argue both sides of that.
Yeah, you could. And I was just like, "All right." So I tried to
establish that where I could pick up a lance and scare you with it.
But it's so big.
That's making my point.
So I argued, okay, fine. He can ordinarily drop the lance, therefore he can ordinarily keep it. So he has the lance. So the next question becomes, can you use it because clearly it's a cavalry weapon. It doesn't state anything about infantry using it. So the argument I made was, well, what about a spear on a horse? Because spears are useless to cavalry. They're both under the same section of the rules in the special weapons category, which is a different section than the close combat weapons, totally different category. So I was like, well, then the argument becomes, if a horse has a spear and a sword, you shadow the sword because you still use a spear, despite the fact that it's effectively useless for them, because it defines only infantry can use this rule it has. I ended up just saying, you know what, Ted has the lance and he can fight with it because elven-made weapons are also in the special rules category, and we all know that you can use that as a. So I'm like, if elven-made weapons are in the special weapons, then therefore, yeah. So he's walking around a big freaking joust that he's like sticking people.
Guy with coconuts appears out of nowhere behind him.
And I'm like, you see this exhausted guy running with like a lance, like, oh my god.
I was just like, what the hell, man? Like, this is
God, I hate that spell so much.
Yeah. I actually love it. I played a list.
I hate it so much.
The Shade and Shatter Shamans. It's depressing.
It's like Evan's game.
Yeah, right. Well,
so
except
funny.
with it makes sense. Like, yeah, I rolled dice, but they didn't matter.
So, Evan, do I understand this correctly?
Yeah. So, Evan, you played. What about your other two games?
Yeah.
Oh, you go first, Tim. What were you saying?
Well, I was just going to ask. So, Evan, I know he has 3 chances per shaman, correct, to shatter? Is that correct?
Yeah, he rolled a 5 on every single one of them. So
he rolled a 5+ on 6 consecutive dice.
He rolled 4 dice each time he rolled a 5, and I only successfully resisted once.
So yeah, Rainier, you can definitely let him know he's perfected microwaving his dice. Getting 5 never mind.
I mean, it's funny. It's funny because we talk about how like dice, you can always kind of do something. You can't do anything about that.
So, the inverse of this was happening. Well, it happened, I guess, in the next round when I was playing against Derek, because he was volleying spell after spell into Suladan. And I think I rolled 3 1-dice 6s in a row. And yeah, Suladan was like, bah. Bah.
Yeah,
I care not for you.
So yeah, what I've found is like dice can be problematic sometimes, but it really depends on what you're doing with them. Like, say if I throw a couple of guys into your couple of guys and they're just basic warriors, then who cares if you're rolling super well on them? Yeah. But like if you're rolling a bunch of 6s on resisting magic tests, or you're casting every single hard to cast spell just like on a 6, then that's when dice can sort of become a factor.
Yeah, it's like when your opponent's making all the right decisions and then your dice go wrong. Like there's no way around that.
Yeah, but honestly, dice average out of it. You just never paid attention to it in the way roll you made.
Yeah, the problem is the way the dice average, because they are going to average, but sometimes they average better on
in the next game.
Yeah, exactly. And on the next game. But sometimes every single important roll you do is a botch, and then like your normal dudes just do super well, and then it doesn't matter.
So I'm sure Derek Arnold's Galadriel did perfectly well in round 3, but at the end of round 2, when she was overwhelmed and slaughtered by a horde of Corsairs right before it went down, Suladan, who she had been targeting the entire game, had more will remaining than she did.
Rough.
So
ouch.
Okay.
Well, game number 2 from me.
Oh, sorry, I forgot.
We were just all so collectively depressed over the
depression.
I need to go fight a lance.
Cue in the Titanic music as the ship is sinking.
Yeah. So I played against. Oh, I'm blanking. Ben Gallagher, I believe his name was. And
he's a Cleveland guy, right?
I don't think he is.
I don't know.
I looked it up last night.
Oh, they're from Maryland.
They're from Maryland with heavy British accents.
Yeah. So he had Harad. So Serpent Horde with Far Harad. So Betrayer, Suladan, Mahud King, and Raza. And Devin and I talked about this, but yeah, Raza didn't do him that well this game.
If you're playing Raza, you're coming to the tournaments and just have fun.
Well,
we're 70 points down.
No, you're probably not.
We're not. Yeah, probably not having fun. You're trying though.
You're coming to the tournament to sigh heavily.
Every time you fight against like a basic guy who shields against you and you lose.
Yeah.
Oh look, bless your heart.
That elf beat me again.
Yeah. So turn 1 went fairly well for me. I got a decent number of kills. And I managed to get a heroic combat off, pass a courage test with my bat swarm, and just killed a betrayer turn 1. And then after that,
this one's for the Witch King.
Yeah, the Witch King got his revenge in that game because he killed the betrayer, he killed Suladan, he killed the Mahud King, and I don't think he killed Raza. I think the Spider Queen killed
Get so
Raza.
excited he killed your own Shadow Lord.
He went absolutely nuts in that game. And then
all right,
with his heroes gone down, the rest of the army kind of crumpled.
All right, so round 3.
Yeah, round 3 was against Chris Snow with Angmar, and I learned in that particular matchup.
Chris Snow, who's sitting right over there.
Yes.
Hi, Chris.
Hey.
Hi, Chris.
Time to talk shit.
Yeah, actually, come over here.
Yeah.
Come over here, Chris.
Yeah. So
you need to you got to tell us how badly you beat Evan.
Yep.
Yeah. So Chris was just a horrible player to play against. He was cheating in every round. It was so no.
Here's the villain now.
Yeah. Yeah. So the two of us had a super great game.
Was it really super great?
Well, I had a minor loss. Evan's a really good player. I feel that's a victory for me. We had a good game.
Yeah. Yeah. He did really well. I made a big mistake early on.
I got lucky too.
Oh, that happens. But I charged the Witch King into Gullivar, who I managed to compel over. And then I stupidly made a courage test for my bat to try and charge Gullivar. And by failing that courage test, I ended up blocking off my Spider Queen from charging into Gullivar. So I'm like, okay, I can.
Yeah, because that would happen. This spider the size of a VW bug has like a swarm of bats in front of him.
Yeah.
She's like, no,
they're
I can't
giant
get through. There's no way around.
Yeah. And so I'm like, okay, if I win, Gullivar's got 4 wounds, defense 5, right? So I've got 8 dice, needing 4s on average. I'll kill him. So I'm like, okay, heroic strike, 1. So I'm lower fight value. I lose the fight, and then next turn, Spider Queen has to burn all of her will points to charge Gullivar. She then immediately gets paralyzed by the Barrow White, and the Witch King botches his resist roll against his Witch King's transfix.
You're cruel, Chris.
No,
You would do this to a child?
Yeah. How could you do this? Yeah, but he made some very good plays there, and it ended up being able to protect Gullivar for the entire game. He never died after that. Birder went in on the Witch King, did a bit of damage, but the Witch King ended up surviving. And for the rest of the game, I looked down at my stat sheet and I'm like, Witch King's got like 5 will left. Shadow Lord's got like 6 will left. This is going to be rough. And I hadn't gotten any of his heroes. But it was retrieval, and I ended up grabbing the objective with the Witch King, and then crazy ruling happened. Barrow White paralyzes the Witch King, and then we call over to Devin to try and figure out what happens because the Witch King had the relic, what happens when a model is paralyzed with the relic.
Yeah.
Turns out the way it's ruled is that you can't drop the relic with the paralyzed model, and you also can't pass the relic with the paralyzed model. So there was just a paralyzed Witch King with the relic that I couldn't move, just sitting there. And I'm like, oh God.
I guess you fell on the relic? Is that what
something like that.
So essentially in the rules, there's no rule for handing off or to take a relic from an ally. You have to hand it off.
I thought you could take a light object from somebody else.
In order to pass a light object, you must, the bearer, and it says this, you must move the bearer And then so he couldn't perform that function, was move the bearer because he can't move. So effectively the bearer has to do the pass. You can't take. There's nothing that happened. And we actually had this this discussion came up actually in the Warhammer World GT where with a heavy object, they were trying to take a heavy object and move it it was with a bomb. He was trying to move it to drop it on the other side, but I argued with him and I was like, you can't drop a heavy object.
He's talking.
It's not a thing. Yeah, exactly. I'm like, dropping a heavy object is not a thing you can do. You just cease to continue carrying it, and that's it. You can drop a light object, though. So that's what it was. It was the lack of the rule existing. And then Matt will eventually find it.
I'll get there eventually.
But, and read it.
But luckily, I ended up being able to roll the 6 on the revive roll with the paralyze. And then on the final turn, I just ran all of my important models. The Spider Queen grabbed the relic, and they just all ran away from Gullivar.
Yeah.
And
fun game. I actually learned a lot, so it was a good game.
Yeah,
you'll learn a lot playing that.
Yeah, it was super fun. And so it ended up being a minor win, 3-0. I got the relic. Nothing else really happened because our guys couldn't charge each other because we both caused terror. So we were just botching all our courage tests and stuff like that.
All right, so this is what the rule says. The object can be passed from one model to another. Just move the bearer into base contact. Oh, I see. So just move the bearer into base contact with a new model and declare who carries the item.
Yeah, so the problem was he couldn't perform the function of moving the bearer. So now you could argue that the passing is not done by the model, but you're just declaring it is being passed, and it's done by the player, and then therefore the paralyzed doesn't have any effect. But that kind of is jarring because no other interaction in the game acts like that, where usually it requires the model to move. So you could make that argument, but I'd say just the fact that it thinks you want to move the bearer into contact. Otherwise, it could have been like, just if two models are in base contact, you may declare that the item is passed or something. Then, I could get the argument. But
probably a good one for the FAQ. So just remember it.
And ordinarily dropping a lance too.
So I talked with Chris about this afterwards, but I think what ended up winning me the game is he had no specters in his army, so he wasn't able to move any of my guys. And I talked with him about that, like, just take one. It just gives you so much. But because of that, he wasn't able to do all of the tricky stuff that he needed to do to be able to stop me from having the relic.
Actually, I probably will make an FAQ on it now that I think about it, because the heavy object one, that was made an FAQ because of that incident, right?
Yeah.
That's the reason.
So Rainier's going to leave us. Bye, Rainier.
All right, Rainier.
Happy anniversary.
Love you.
All right, he doesn't care.
He doesn't.
No, I think he.
Oh, he's frozen. No.
He's Chris.
Oh, no.
Goodbye.
Permanent high five.
All right, well, he'll drop eventually.
Well, so
he'll drop.
For a bit.
Yeah, we can talk meta.
I think I've heard the word Spider Queen 800 times.
And Gullivar you will hear a lot too in this tournament.
Well, personally, in this tournament, I've heard the word evil a lot. Because I think there's like over 66% evil.
Yeah.
Which is, it's crazy. There's 4 Angmar lists?
There are 4 Angmar lists, and all of them have Gullivar. Which, at this point, you're probably kind of crazy for not taking her, but and then there's not many good armies, and of the ones that exist, it's what elves, fiefdoms I've seen, and then outside of that, it's crazy. We actually have all the lists in front of us, but little minions here.
But I don't think it actually says the list.
Well, it just says the brand.
Yeah,
the brand of list.
Yeah.
The brand. We got to kill on
some model.
The other thing that came, there are also, I think, 4 fiefdoms here.
Or mixes between them.
Which probably between them adds up to about half of the good armies.
Yeah.
Are they from mostly local or just from all over? Because I know they're very popular locally.
I know
Ted is local.
So Ted's local. We can look through them, but Rivendell and Lothlorien are making up like 2 of the lists from out of local. But fiefdoms actually being so popular is actually kind of interesting because they're not a cheap army to get, so you have to really want them. I think it's probably because no one can play them for the past decade without getting completely destroyed.
Well, that and spending an arm and a leg to get them.
Yeah, and that's really the barrier for that. So actually, the fact that some people have them means that they really beefed them up to the point where people are like interested in playing them. And that's of course assuming maybe you know better than I do on this one about the popularity of the army being largely centered around how competitive it is. I mean, is that something that you've seen?
I mean, nothing beyond anecdotal, right? But it also varies. So in the tournament community, obviously, right? But how many people are playing at home that aren't coming to events? Right?
Fair enough.
Well,
So
I'm going to say this right now. If Forlong hit strike, he would be ridiculously broken.
Yeah, I'm glad
he's already pretty ridiculously good for his cost. So.
His big weakness is him not having strike, but just the ability to get, what is he, 90 points on horse?
He's 90 points.
90 points on horse. He's got strength 5 with a lance. He's got fight 5. He's got a war horn, which is like, okay. And he gives the
horn because he's modeled with it. That's the problem.
Yeah,
they made him with the model. So, and Forlong was invented before warhorns had a use, like a rule. So,
but I mean, Erkenbrand has a horn, and it's not a war horn except for Rohan, right?
Yeah, but I think he actually had a horn.
He has a war horn.
No, like in the books.
No, he definitely.
Oh well, yeah. So it's justified for him. Yeah, but Forlong,
Boromir has a horn in the books and tabletop. It's not a war horn.
Which is so weird.
That is such a good point, Rob.
He's and it's never been in the history of the profile of Warhorn, even though it's always been a horn.
Yeah, it's just something that he blows whenever he's fighting, which probably puzzles the heck out of like orcs who are like, who is this guy and why does he keep blowing that horn?
I hate jazz.
The funny part is actually in the movies, he only blew the horn to tell everyone where he was because he needed help.
Yeah, I mean, but that's what it was.
It wasn't to scare the enemy. It was more like, hey guys, I'm scared. Like, I need.
Arguably, it was to pump himself up, right? To be like, I can do this. I can do this. Right?
It's like his last chance is like, okay, I've got no chance, but maybe if I blow this horn, I can kill 2 extra Uruk-hai. I don't know.
Yeah, it was from a cut scene from the movie when like a bunch of Uruk-hai are running after him. They're like, stop! He's got a horn. Everybody be careful.
No, it's even worse.
I'm not afraid to use this.
They don't actually lose a fight. So they're more like just like, oh, let me cover my eyes.
Because they're all standing there watching his solo, right?
Yeah, right. Right. So that is one of those rules that has stood the test of time and doesn't make any sense.
No sense at all.
It's tradition.
Yeah, exactly. It's been a rule. It works. Don't change it. So
yeah, just like two-handed weapons getting a -1.
There you go. Balrog having by 10.
And well, I've heard a lot of complaints about the Blackroot Vale archers as well. They're very powerful.
Yeah, they're scary.
You've done some ridiculous things with Blackroot. You killed Aragorn through like 3 ranks of Army of the Dead with them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Rerolling all your hits and wounds, right?
There's a way you can rig it so that you almost reroll all your
average, except for 2s or something.
Yeah, you hit on 3s, reroll 1s. Yeah. And then if you call heroic shoot, you reroll all 2 wound rolls. It's crazy.
And with any character too. Yeah. Like I thought it was just doing her at first. But it's like anybody calls it. I'm like,
that's the thing. It's
shoot. Really strange.
I've seen some ideas like people allying in gambling with the banner or Aragorn Strider and just calling a heroic shoot every single turn.
But didn't we think of like Aldor? Doesn't he like call a shoot?
Aldor can call a shoot
himself, so it doesn't work. Yeah.
No, Aldor's actions don't affect.
And then there was the
call with me. So what Aldor can do is Aldor shoots first. And
it's not
that only affects him. But if he's sitting next to Gamling, he's got 1 point of might. So
that's what dropped to 0.
But I mean, you can do that with anybody standing.
You could do that with Gamling himself, or well, you probably wouldn't want to waste his might though, because his might's more valuable. I think the reason you choose Aldor is because he's
The whole Gamling 1 drop was much better back when he affected multiple models, so you could ally in Gamling, Aldor, Haleth, and get effectively 3 free might points every turn.
Yeah.
But now it's only 1 might point, so you're usually better off just taking Aragorn. But it's cool.
So to get slightly back on topic, has anybody brought Lady of Light?
Never.
Have you seen Lady of Light?
No, actually,
Lady of Light. Because I mean, lots of evil, not a lot of good, and I'm not seeing.
I think it is circumstance. It's circumstance of the fact that there's so many evil armies, though. So many people were denied the ability to even take.
But even not knowing that it was going to be a lot of evil, I feel like you'd see Lady of Light at a tournament, right? Like she's.
It is shocking. It is very shocking.
She would be especially strong at this tournament because so much Angmar, so much Mordor, stuff like that, where she's so good.
Maybe it's just me now. I don't know, but I'm starting to notice she's not being taken as much nowadays. I think people are getting to that point now where it's kind of like Rangers, where it's like yeah, you can take it, but it's kind of like, hey, dude, don't take that model anymore. Like, just only for like the very specific scenarios, like Articon maybe, where you would take it, because she's just getting to that Rangers of Athelion kind of point where you're just like, it's just too good. Why are you taking it? Kind of a situation.
I kind of feel the same way about like Gulavar and Spider Queen too, though, right? Where they're so ubiquitous now.
Well,
right?
but Gulavar can only be taken within the list that he's in, so it kind of makes sense. Yeah. And also, he's only effective because he's in the list that he's in. Because without Heroic Strike and his soft, fragile body kind of thing, he needs an army that shuts down the opponent and just basically feeds it to them. And so he's in the perfect army for him to operate. I think you throw Gulavar in like Khazad-dûm and he's not doing much. Well, okay, not much, but like he's not doing as effectively as he's doing
play him
now.
in a much different way, and he's probably not as good.
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing you really want in an Angmar list would be the Shadow Lord. That's probably the only thing you'd want because his one weakness is shooting. But other than that, the list is pretty self-sufficient.
So there's the Lady of Light is kind of weird in the fact that, one, you're penalized because she can't lead a warband, so you're automatically paying a hero tax, and then you just ally her everywhere. So that's where it's kind of like, but I think she's less of a, I think she's more of a, that's more of a consequence of how the game is, which is the shooting tech is real with Corsairs and so many people. I mean, even here, I think we got a pretty good play. I mean, fiefdoms and such, shooting is scary. So how much anti-shooting tech is there in good? Like 3? Gandalf the White, and
and the other
Gandalf the White, Círdan,
and Lady Light.
And
Galadriel, the two variants.
Círdan can't ally really anymore without either Glorfindel or one of the big elves, or an elf captain, which no one wants to take.
And Lady of the Light is 50 points cheaper than Gandalf.
Gandalf is 180 points, which is like, you better be taking him with a warband of survivors of Lake Town, or otherwise he's not doing much, and he's just unreliable. If you don't take him in like pure Lake Town. And then Gandalf.
I don't know. I mean, I think
Gandalf's a solid option.
The mounted Gandalf is, I think, the guy you want to take with the mounted Rivendell force.
So a mobile army is gonna, but basically you get the point, is that it's not Galadriel who's the problem. That it's a lack of options or just shooting meta in general.
And Gandalf the White is too expensive, by the way.
Gandalf the White's off the table.
Too expensive.
Because
the whole thing with Galadriel is that you can take her with really big heroes. Like, there are ways at 800 points to take her with like 2 mega heroes and just crush stuff.
Or an Iron Hills Chariot, Champion's Chariot.
I don't know anyone who would ever do such a stupid thing. But
some legend out there.
Gandalf the White is, well, almost double her points, because Gandalf the White is 240, she's 130. He does the same things that she does. They're basically similar in combat. So you're just paying a lot of points for Sorcerer's Blast and Transfix and Compel and that sort of thing. So,
and that's go ahead, Rob.
I was just gonna say, like, to your point, I never used to or wanted to run Lady of Light, even though she's a good model. But like, when you constantly run into nothing but Angmar and Corsair shooting, and over you're getting beaten by these evil armies, and she's literally the only answer.
She's your answer.
She suddenly ends up in every list. Right?
Exactly.
So, so it's almost like you're forced into it.
Galadriel is the answer.
Galadriel really is the answer.
Yeah, it almost concerns me with, like, if they figure out how to nerf her, which, by the way, probably part of the reason they don't nerf her is because, like, how do you do it? Do you make her not a hero of valor? That doesn't make sense.
No, you make her cost $200 to buy.
That's one way to do it.
Gamers will figure it out. We all bought small.
I was gonna say that's an impediment that
not all of us.
No one's ever gonna play 30 Knights of Dale.
Yeah, right.
All right. So I know we've talked. Let's try to get back on topic.
Well, I mean, the topic was the meta.
Again, we had a topic.
It's a round table.
I would think
the topic was the meta.
If the topic is the meta, Lady of Light is the meta, and the lack of Lady of Light in this tournament.
I was gonna say
I think it's a valid observation, right? Like, it's weird that at a competitive tournament of 34 people, you don't see a single Lady of Light.
Exactly.
And it's fair enough.
And it's the volume of evil models that is the armies that actually do not have the option.
How many yellow alliances are there? I think
that's another thing. Yeah,
I think it's almost exclusively me, and then Alisher has a yellow as well.
Yeah, I think.
Sure. Oh,
Yeah.
and
So everyone's green.
Somebody took Gondor and Aragorn, Strider from Fellowship.
Interesting.
Yep.
So it was Boromir and Aragorn.
Definitely a large majority.
Rest in peace, my list.
Yeah, you can't do King Elisar anymore, but you can do Strider.
I actually have thought about trying that. Does anybody know how it?
So you're saying near enough everybody is green, though,
We
correct?
don't know who's piloting it, though. That's the problem. So it's hard to know.
What'd you say, Tim?
So you're saying near enough everyone is green?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like pretty much everyone is green.
Yeah, or just not allied.
Or yeah, most of the armies are pure.
That's good, I guess.
There's a bunch of legendary legions too. There's a Dunlin legendary legion here. There's an army of two Dunlin.
Oh, that's awesome! I love that so much.
There's an army of Gothmog running around.
Return of the King.
Yeah, there's Return of the King legendary legion running around. Yeah, you usually see one of those.
Yeah.
So
is there any model that you're seeing a lot of that you wouldn't expect to see?
It is a newer person, actually.
So models that we've seen a lot of that we wouldn't expect to see.
Seen a lot.
Well, I guess not a lot of, but are you're seeing more than usual? And is there anything?
Definitely Gullivar, the Angmar Gullivar list.
Which it kind of depends on your definition of more than usual. Yeah. If you're saying like, because usual lately has been Gullivar and the Angmar list, but yeah.
But I mean, 1/8 of the people here are playing Gullivar with Angmar.
Sure.
There's a lot of people.
I mean, outside of that, you're going to see some outliers, but there's no like unusual variance. It's not like I'm seeing losses suddenly here or something. You're seeing the usual suspects. I mean, it's not, evil majority, but yeah, it's not like there's anything real wild Fangorn list or like, which I say wild. Apparently, the Canadians play Fangorn all the time. I'm shocked by that. Yeah, I was just like, oh, all right.
Well, I mean, they're Canadian.
Yeah.
So, what do you think the reason is, in your guys' opinion, why it's mostly evil? When I think a lot of times, because we've talked about this, a lot of people tend to believe that good is much better than evil.
I think the only answer is most Americans are evil.
Yeah.
Probably it.
Yes.
All right.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Back it up.
I mean, I know it's true in my case.
Yeah. I mean,
we're the kind of people who put a lance on an infantryman.
We will.
We will skewer the competition.
Sorry. I was thinking like part of it is I generally think people enjoy playing evil more. It depends, but evil has more like tricks and fun things you can do. So a lot of people find that more enjoyable than just good. I got my fight 5 shield wall. I'm going to push them forward. And I'm going to grind through you.
You hold your tongue.
Yeah.
I got my fight 5 shield wall that you can only shoot at and hit on a 6.
Yeah.
Forward we go.
Do you guys agree with the concept Evan said, where you find good more boring than evil, perhaps?
I don't think more boring.
Boring? Who said that?
No.
I may be paraphrasing what he's
more enjoyable to play sometimes.
Maybe more enjoyable is the better way to put it.
And also I think another part of this is that no one's been bringing Galadriel Lady of Light, so they're like, okay, I've got nothing deals with my magic, so I'll just take the magic.
If I'm gonna have to theorize, I mean, we're talking about a local tournament. I'm trying to wonder how many. I guess there's enough attendance from outside locality that.
Well, I know locally evil's pretty popular, right?
Yeah,
like, for good.
It is DC.
So.
Yeah, it is DC. No, yeah. So
that's so sad. I just got back to Evan game 1 set.
Yeah.
Outside of that, though, I mean, if we're looking at it, I mean. I was going to say, well, locally we all play together, but actually we've got a good, healthy mix of people here as I'm looking at these names. So it's, I don't honestly know. I mean, do you find in your experience, for those who don't know, Rob's actually I don't know if you GW employee.
Yeah, I moonlight there.
You moonlight. So do you find sales for evil models from your perspective anyway? Like, is that true?
I don't know. I think that newer players do tend to gravitate towards evil more. And I think it's because a lot of people think evil's more fun, right? They're either playing Return of the King because they got the cheap ghost set of the starter set, right? And they're the easiest starter army ever. Or they want the like fun stuff because evil's big monsters, right? Hordes of troops, and it has just a little bit just a little more of an interesting appeal, I think. But that's entirely
I
anecdotal.
will say, if I was a newer player, I would be definitely more attracted to taking things like trolls. Like that
Yeah,
would
I
be
mean, you
something.
see a lot of trolls, you see a lot of fell beasts, you see the kind of big Gribblies that, you know, that people find interesting both visually and, I mean, in a lot of cases also.
Is Gribbly a technical term?
It is a technical term,
Okay.
yeah. If you want to look through your rule book, it's in the
Page 196 on the third paragraph, Gribbly.
So, I mean, you know what? That's actually a great point. I'd say that could mean the rise of popularity of evil is the fact that you have now a lot of evil armies that once weren't good now are good, and now you can take a lot of these really fun toys.
Wait a minute, I'm lost. Are you saying that evil is now good?
I always thought they were, but
Does that mean good is now evil?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. No, it's going to be confusing.
Can't keep track anymore.
Yeah.
To the facts.
I would like to offer one point.
There we go.
I think if you look, hi, Chris James. I like to use
Hi, Chris.
now. Thank you for having me on the show. A lot of the good lists were pretty cav heavy, and I think that was one reason you didn't see Lady of Light, because she would just be outrun.
That's a fair point.
And I took Sirgan. I play tested Sirgan, and I have mostly Rivendell Knights. There's just no way they can keep up. So,
yeah,
interesting.
No, it's like so actually that is a good point. That a lot.
Yeah, I mean, not seeing the list.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, I mean, although I did play against a Rivendell Knight list that had the other Galadriel in it.
Yeah. Which is unusual. Yeah. Well, I don't know why you put Galadriel in a Rivendell Knight list.
I don't know, but it's not that much of a savings.
Right? Yeah, no, 50 points. I mean, that's worth dropping 2 cap.
Maybe it's because she had the pikemen and they wanted the fight six guys, right? The warband.
Oh yeah, maybe it was. Why would he want pikemen? Why would he want random?
I don't know. Fight six.
I mean, I did talk about it afterwards, and in Derek's defense, he said, "Yeah, I had to like kind of put this together in a hurry because I forgot to submit my list." So it may have been that.
Yeah, but potentially so. So all right, then. I can't explain the rise of evil in such mass degree here, but
well, I mean, I think maybe that's worth tracking over a couple local tournaments now that they're popping up to see if it's completely by chance and people hadn't played during the pandemic and they want to play with their big toys
and like whether the meta, I mean, the meta always seems to like overcorrect, so it could be we're gonna go to the next one and like everybody
well, so Lady of Light, Gandalf,
I know next tournament I am 100% taking Lady of Light with what I saw here.
I keep her in my pocket just in case.
2/3 of the other players at this tournament are saying the exact same thing to themselves.
They've all ordered their what is it, the White Council set that's about to come out, or is it out?
No, it's not out yet. So
but it's gonna, they've all got it on pre-order. They're like, okay, we got to paint her up, just.
Oh yeah, with this new Legendary Legion is coming out, I think Galadriel will be back in action. I don't. Well, okay.
The Legendary Legion, I think, is going to probably be another breaking of the Fellowship, just because it's just guys.
And how many models did you say it was?
For the Legendary Legion,
probably better ask Nick. They said
it's got to be right. I mean, it's because it's the storming of Dol Guldur.
Galadriel,
is that what? So they
Saruman,
put that.
Gandalf, Radagast.
Yeah.
So okay, then how you can make that competitive is impossible. So I'm going to go ahead and say that that's not going to actually do anything.
I mean, 3 wizards in one list.
I think it's going to be popular simply because a lot of people like not painting a lot of models, and it's the same reason people take like the Fellowship, right? Where they're like, I want to buy one box of 6 models. As soon as you hit
combat, you're going to die.
Yeah, but not everyone cares.
Yeah, just take the breaking of the Fellowship.
No, I mean that'll be. I don't know. That is got to be it. It's gonna be like you're right. It's gonna be like breaking the Fellowship.
I have to say the breaking the Fellowship list is a lot of fun to play. I mean,
awesome. Yeah.
I'm not. I mean, I'm not trying to take it to a 600-point tournament, although I was seriously thinking about it. But it is. I mean, just as something to like, in a pickup game at home, when you're like, hey, let's play 600 points, pull the breaking of the Fellowship out. It is just so much fun to.
But you could take it to a more casual event, right? Like,
so what made it more fun than just playing Fellowship?
Because it has enough things in it so that against a good player, you're not going to be, you're not going to be like overwhelmed by,
So it is actually like ish in a mid-tier competitive, you would say.
Yeah, it is. I mean, the reason it's not like a competitive list is because there are so many scenarios where you require a whole bunch of figures
to move
to win. It has real problems with objective scenarios because once people kind of figure out the way you deal with breaking the Fellowship list in objective scenarios, you just run away from the Fellowship.
And you don't have horses in that list. You're all on foot. at least the Fellowship can take horses.
Yeah. But if you're playing a scenario that like does not depend on getting an objective over here and an objective over there and an objective over there, it's a lot of fun to play, and it's a real challenge to both play with and play against if you're in like some sort of head-to-head fight, because it's, you know, you've got all these heroes who are, you know, virtually, you've got a bunch of heroes that are virtually unstoppable, but in order to keep them from getting surrounded, that you have to like do weird things with your hobbits, and then like desperately try and keep them from dying. So it's a real interesting. Yeah, I mean it's like this game within a game of like, you know, who's going to call the heroic combat to save the hobbit over here? Yeah, you know, and you have to keep up a constant kill rate, or you're going to you have to kill the guys as they're coming in, or else you get overwhelmed and surrounded. It's really a lot of fun.
Yeah, it sounds awesome.
But anyway. So we actually had Avery, who's here with us, actually had a question. You want to come over and pose the question, Avery? All
right. My question was whether you can use the White Warg. It was twofold. Whether the White Warg could be a target in Assassination because it is a target in Fog of War, and then also whether you could use it as your assassin.
Did you hear, Tim, can you hear him clearly?
Yeah. It's a little light, but I could hear the question, so I think it'll be fine.
So basically, yeah, White Warg, can he be the target in Assassination, and then can you use the White Warg to kill your target? So I'll tell you what my ruling was when he asked me the question. So to answer the question of can he be the, in fact, you know what, can we turn the rule book on this? Because I forgot my reasoning for the rule. Oh, actually, you know what? It's here. I'm breaking stuff. Nope, never mind. It's not here. This is an epic here.
Does anybody have a rule book here?
Well, that's a scenario.
I have the rule book on my phone.
So what I said, it's a scenario. That's mostly, but basically, can you pick him? So you pick, I believe, it depends on whether it says a hero or a model, but I'm pretty sure it says pick a hero. It is a hero, and therefore he can be picked. Done. If it's a model, then okay, it's ambiguous wording because it's all one model. I still would, because then if you argue it's the whole model and that's what it is, then when they split, it's like, okay, what part actually took it? Do you just get to choose? Like, so I'd still like to think it's still just a hero, just for the sake of, you know, reducing the complexity of how that would work. But so anyway, I think it did say a hero. And if I'm correct, and Matt's going to tell me if I am, then that's why I said, yes, you can target the White Warg as your target.
Yeah.
The problem was the other thing. That's what you couldn't do. So the White Warg, if you wanted him to kill your target, you would have to dismount, because you never actually attack with the White Warg. Yeah. You're always attacking with the rider, and the rider's just taking the stats of the White Warg. So that's where I said, while you could do it, you'd be forced to dismount to pull it off.
Yeah, and by the way, I think when he had asked me this question before, I think that was how I had come out too.
Oh god.
And you know, part of the problem is, I mean, you're right. The rules are schizophrenic as to when a hero on top of another hero is a model and when it's two heroes. Because there are certain circumstances when it's two heroes, and certain circumstances when it's a model. As far as I can tell, there's like, you know, it's when Jay wants it to be a model, it's a model. When Jay wants it to be two heroes, it's two heroes. And you know, you can't disentangle it from the rules. But I mean, if you look at the Fog of War scenarios, which I understand have been ruled to say like the White Warg can kill him, it's the exact same wording as in.
Then, and I know in Fog of War you can select it's just the only new circumstance is the fact that you have to kill a hero with a specific hero.
Yeah.
And then that was where it got kind of interesting. Yeah. Did we answer that? Yeah.
All right.
I didn't end up.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay. Matt, is there anyone else over there who has a question?
I don't know. Chris, do you have any questions?
No.
All right.
I got one from Samir that's
that's what I was going to say. Go ahead.
I'll pull it up on screen right now. Samir asks, what's the biggest challenges you guys have experienced thus far? And he asks, any surprise list comps that are performing unexpectedly? We kind of covered the second one, but I guess we kind of talked about what were weird lists that are here rather than what are performing unexpectedly. So is there anything that's been doing really well that was unexpected there?
I got to tell you, trying to stop Sauron in the retrieval scenario was unexpectedly hard. when he grabbed the flag, put his head down, and just started rolling toward the edge of the board.
There is only one Lord of the Rings. Doesn't share power.
I'll say only thing I've noticed is and this is due to some circumstances of the tournament where some of the best players got paired up round one, so they were avoided by some of the other players, and so basically Army of Dunland is kind of high on 2 counts. Not to say the Army of Dunland is bad. Jay won the Warhammer World GT with it, so clearly
I think he got second, but. Either way,
or second or first, but it's a pretty hard tournament.
He won all of his games with that specific army list,
so clearly it has some utility to it in order to win a various amount of scenarios. But
it's interesting because I don't think there's a lot of Rohan here either, right? No.
There's like one.
Yeah,
I think there's like one Rohan player,
despite the fact that there's no Rohan.
Yeah, so you lose one of your special rules basically, and so that's the one I would say stood out is that Army of Dunland was high up in both army lists that were being played. Now the skill level of the player, I have no idea, but that was something interesting that stood out. What did you say? There was a 2-part question, wasn't it?
Yes. The other part was what experiences. Let me just pull it up here. I just got rid of it for a second. It's just loading in. One moment. Right, here it is. He asks, what's the biggest challenges you guys have experienced thus far?
I'm not sure I know how to answer that question.
Well, I mean, the big challenges we had were round one.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I mean, they fought a strong opponent round one, but I mean, like, even if we assume that happened by random chance, let's just, normal tournament circumstance. Any other challenges? Well, I was a judge, so I don't know if he's talking about challenges he fought in game.
I think you can interpret that however you'd like.
Evan can't roll for shit. No, I don't know. But I mean, maybe Evan's got challenges. It's fucking depressing games.
It sounds like it's been a rough tournament for Evan.
Yeah, I halfway through, I was like, I'm just going to throw these out and buy some new ones.
Yeah. Your wrists have gotten soft and fat in the pandemic.
Yeah.
Evan, do you remember that game we played at Rainier's tournament where you took the Rangers list and I took the Lake Town?
I do.
It was just kind of like, that's what I imagine it going down for you, like you.
Yeah, we just kind of, in that game, I think we just kind of both just like gave up halfway through and we're like, okay, let's just roll some dice and see who rolls worse at this point.
Basically, we went to, I think it was 500 points at Rainier's tournament, correct?
Yeah.
So it was
the ever-balanced Rangers of Ithilien.
And so it was one of those things where you had to get to the middle of the board and Evan had like 40 bows. So I'm just like, all right, this game's over. So you just kind of accept it.
I got into the middle of the board, pushed past the hold ground objective, and he couldn't really get to it. And we just, rolled some dice and had some fun with it at that point.
Was that like the scene in did anybody see the movie Gallipoli from way back when with a very young Mel Gibson in it?
Mm-hmm. Like a million years ago.
Yeah, that's right. It's like so Tim was like the scene at the end where he he drops his rifle and he takes all his stuff off and he just climbs out of the trench and just runs unarmed toward the waiting to get gunned down.
Yeah. Sounds about right.
That's what every game against Rangers of Ithilien was.
Yeah.
Unless you had very specific counters.
All right. Thank you for tuning into this episode.
Wait, one more.
Oh, we got one more? All right.
Oh, I guess there's one more.
I had a question, which was thinking about legendary leeches that are coming out. I feel like there's a interesting mix between some that are not competitive at all, and then some that are so competitive to the point of being nerfed. And I was just curious if you guys would care to speculate on perhaps the upcoming book and then farther
reference you on that one. You had a great theory.
I think we've talked about this before.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean,
wait, Tim, did you hear that question?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So what we've talked about before, and my main theory about legendary legions is because of the way they're structured and their limited pool of models that you can make them extremely polar. So for example, Rangers of Ithilien shoots, Breaking of the Fellowship is
hero heavy,
6 models, something like that. Yeah.
Same. magic does very, heavy magic use on the ring race.
Yeah.
Thing.
Even the Army of the Dead one gets shut down by magic and bodyguard. They've all got very strong counters, and they're also very strong against stuff. And what that does is it makes it so either an army list is completely terrible and doesn't function because of how limited their roster is, or they have one thing that is just so obscenely powerful that they can just crush everybody off of the board. And that's sort of the theory behind Rangers of Ithilien mainly, and sort of Black Riders in some respects, though we haven't really seen them do well at a tournament.
I don't think there's been enough time yet.
No, there hasn't. And then all the other legendary legions are just so limited that they're kind of
so you also have the bombs. You referenced
Helm's Deep one.
The Helm's Deep one, yeah. It's another one that does a thing very well. So they thought of an idea. Hey, what if we make siege weapons more powerful? And they scaled it up. And there's a reason they don't do that in the normal game, with justification of, well, you don't have the models, and so now it does that very well. And it, if you don't know why it works.
I really wish, I don't know, I hope they are starting to put more thought into the legendary legions, because there have been so many that came out that were just broken. And they're broken on either side of the spectrum, right? You would have some like Rangers of Ithilien that were just broken because they were uber powerful.
And even Riders of Theoden, which was just better than Rohan, and still is.
Yeah, I know. And then they have to make changes to tone them down. And then you had the ones like what's that?
Men of the West.
Men of the West. Yeah, that it's like
you can't even find an excuse to play.
It is
it's so
it is so abysmally bad that you only take it if you want to play Themey.
And even then, just play the normal army and play a Themey. But yeah, that's the problem, is they're so one direction that you can miss the mark.
I feel like the legendary legions kind of come in two flavors, right? One, and I'd say the majority, is what you're saying, Evan, which is skew lists, right? And whenever you have a skew list, it's gonna go like this, right? You're gonna have your good and bad matchups. And then there are the couple that are just almost too remarkably balanced, but that in a way makes them uncompetitive, because when you can take allies and other lists to cover weaknesses, right, it's going to make the ones that are remarkably balanced but limited by the fact that they can't do that just mid-table at best.
Right? You actually were talking about Dunland.
Or
earlier, and I think that probably fits.
Right? That's like a perfect combined arms army. It has a little bit of everything, but
that
never going to
suffers from being worse than the Helm's Deep one. And the Helm's Guard one.
Well, Helm's Deep one stops being functional past 600 points. You have one hero trying to do all the heavy lift.
Yeah. The one with the elves and stuff?
No, sorry. I was
Defenders
different. You're talking about Defenders of Helm's Deep.
Helm's Guard is the one that doesn't function above 600.
Exactly. That's the one I was talking about.
Helm's Deep is the one.
You're talking about Defenders of Helm's Deep.
Yeah.
So that's another one that it does a thing, but it is balanced, because once it gets past the shooting, it's got a solid force.
Yeah.
And by the way, I don't think that there's anything wrong with the legendary legions that function in a particular, obviously, the Breaking of the Fellowship only functions at 600 points. But 600 points is really fun to play.
Yeah.
And I think Helm's Guard is that way too. It's really only.
Are we talking about Helm's Guard or Defenders of Helm's Deep?
No, I'm talking about.
You're talking Helm's Guard.
Helm's Guard.
Hammerhand.
Yeah, you're right. It doesn't function once you get up to 600 points, and probably even when we're approaching 600 points. But for a 500 point army, it's a really fun little army to play. And that's perfectly fine. It's just, as you say, it's the ones where it's why would anybody in their right mind take this, or why would anybody in their right mind take anything else? That are the two problems.
And it's really hard, because you can see GW's kind of trapped themselves in a corner where they can't use any models they're not going to create. They don't want to change existing profiles. We've seen that they just won't do it. So, because I think even the GW team probably knew Ithilien Rangers were going to be an issue. I can't imagine they didn't think that might not come. But if you can't change the profile, you can't add any models, and I don't know what limitations you even make. But yet we got to create the Legion because it was in the movies. So. All right. So I think they're limited by a number of different factors, and that sometimes might swing. I don't know, but it's just a thought that.
I also think that maybe it wasn't that thought through, right? Like
And
Rangers of Ithilien thematically are super cool, right?
Yeah,
it looks awesome. I mean, maybe they just like thought, no, it's gonna be fine. This isn't gonna be a problem, right? And then it just became a problem. You never know.
Well, I mean, part of that was I think they had the idea in their head that it was going to be you're taking the Rangers and you're taking Frodo, Sam, and Smeagol. And then people never did that because why spend, how much are they in total? Like 180 some, 170, 180 points.
That's actually a ton when you add them all together.
Yeah, because they all have all their stuff. Why spend 180 points when you can just take more Rangers?
Well, but even then it was mostly at the lower points, right?
Yeah.
Once you got the higher points, people started taking them because you like.
And then the list was balanced because the list with them is fine.
Yeah.
But at lower points,
it's a nightmare.
Yeah, because you just took all Rangers and you had like 40 models at like 500 points, and you'd shoot everybody off the board, and no one would have fun.
So, yeah, I guess that's it.
Okay. Thank you for tuning into this week, as always.
One more thing. Avery asked us to speculate on upcoming legions.
All right, so Avery, do you mean legions that from the Necromancer book?
Yeah, or potentially like are going to be broken? Is it going to be reasonable?
Okay.
So we've talked about the White Council one. That's probably going to be
trash, right? Like
yeah.
5 models.
Well, I'm not sure it's going to be trash. It's going to be an interesting challenge.
It's going to have.
They're going to have to do what they did with the Black Riders, and
trash,
each model is going to have to be ridiculously good.
Here's what I'm thinking. I think we already
high skill list at best.
Yeah. The Ring Wraith Legion. We've now seen what GW's thoughts are on an all magic, low combat force. Okay, I won't call it trash, but it's not making top tables. So
it's just
I
gonna
assume
be the
5 models not mounted
Yet.
are not going to do that much better. But that's an assumption. I don't know.
One of them has a bunch of rabbits.
One of them does have a bunch of rabbits. Oh, okay. So you have one mounted. Maybe. Yeah, so you would have a sleigh, I guess. Right? If they're going off the movies. You said they're going off the movies.
I can't imagine.
Didn't they try to make them exactly 800 points?
So you'll have the sleigh. But that's a lot of work for a 5 model spool when 9 already have trouble with it. So it's a thought. And keep in mind, the 9 have a super important rule that stops them from being swarmed, which their only weakness, their one mate, well, not only, but their main weakness is a bodyguarded force, right? That ignores that limitation. The White Council doesn't have that. So, well, okay, you have Terrifying Aura, but unless you amp that up, you wouldn't make it like that. So, I mean, like, how do you...
What I really hope you're going to see is I hope we're going to see Saruman with more attacks. Because if you saw what he did in that movie...
He's a fighter.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, he's clearly
he did not have one attack.
He's like doing like somersaults.
Yeah.
So would you be upset if they added some rule like that they did with the Ring Wraith, where they give them like minus... Like you know the list with
the cumulative harbinger. I don't.
Yeah, would you be upset if they gave that to the White Council, but they called it something different?
None of them have harbinger naturally, so it would have.
No, well, Lady of Light.
I guess Lady of Light.
I mean, you could stack that. Maybe you could increase the range.
What
of the
I'd be interested in seeing is a lot of them have Terrifying Aura, and why not give them channeled Terrifying Aura?
So that might work, but then it's once again they definitely need that effect. So okay, if they had channeled Terrifying Aura, of course, if you fight a horde, no, actually, you know what? Channeled Terrifying Aura is actually better, in my opinion, than getting minus modifiers.
Channeled Terrifying Aura is pretty broken.
Just said that. If they don't have channeled Terrifying Aura and I play that Legion, that's the first thing I'm doing. I'm like, well, I guess they're all a might down because I'm going to channel this spell.
Well, I mean, so we know some other things, right? I'm sure they're going to get the +1 to resist magic that the White Council already has.
Although we'll be completely unstoppable with magic, I think. But in the fact of firing magic at them, you have Galadriel combined with any magic.
And I'm pretty sure they're going to self-banner. So it's going to be like the Breaking of the Fellowship is when you have like 2 of them next to each other, they each banner each other.
Yeah.
So I bet that's going to happen. I really hope that they will increase Saruman's attacks, because that's really when you try and play those 5 figures together and you play that scenario against the Ring Wraith, he's always the weak link because he's like got the 1 die and he doesn't have a fight value.
So are you trying to go for the Gandalf the White thing where he gets 2 attacks, kind of a thing?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, 2 attacks, and I'm actually wondering if he's going to get to fight 6 or something like that. But probably 2 attacks is going to be a minimum. So 2 attacks and a banner.
I mean, he was kicking butt.
Yeah, I mean, they were all. I have always thought that all of the wizards should have the ability, like with that extra point of will, if they don't spend it, they can spend it to get an extra attack in the
that would be
phase.
really cool.
So if somebody like charges them and they don't get the spell off, you can say, all right, I'm going to use my 3 point of will, and I'm going to get an extra attack.
Oh, I really like that.
Really like and
well, I guess just to hit on all the other legions, because I just thought about this. We don't want to focus too much on one legion, I guess.
No, we should focus on
Dumbledore Wraith.
The Dale Legion. He mentioned this question.
Oh, yeah.
The Dale.
So
is there a Dale Legion? Do we know if
nothing's been confirmed,
not,
but based on the models released?
Yeah, it's not coming in.
Probably.
No, actually, they have. I think they have. No, we don't know if it's a Legion or not.
I would bet that there's going to be a Dale and Erebor combined.
It's going to be a Dale.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So that's like a good
defense of the Lonely Mountain Third Age version.
So what would you want that to be, the rule?
Dale and Erebor.
Something like, they benefit fighting together, because I mean the whole thing. I haven't really read the appendices where they talk about that whole story, but I'm fairly sure the whole thing is that they're fighting a last stand together.
Yeah. So it's not going to be a Kirathungal thing where you want to have
it's not going to be
from Dale.
It's not going to. Oh, I hope not. But just going to have good animosity.
Yeah, one way you could probably just represent that is by not having the ubiquitous clause of only Dale can lead Dale and Erebor can lead Erebor, so you can mix war bands.
That would allow you to utilize Dale's archers.
That's going to
happen because that's going to happen in any legendary legion, even if you just had Dale guys leading Dale and.
So I guess you'll definitely see an increase in archers naturally.
I mean, I imagine 33% of every one of those legions will be Dale archers. Right?
Yeah.
With years. So
unfortunately, I think the new legion is going to be quite inhospitable to the new Dale guys, the knights, because you just take dwarves.
I don't think you would take them in that legion.
Yeah, you
don't. Because you just want archers and
dwarves are good front line.
Yeah.
I think you would take.
Well, remember, them as a back line,
because they're the ones that get the bonus for being charged. So
they have to be in the
front rank. They have to be in the front rank.
Yeah, that's the problem, because you're going to have your dwarves in the front rank. You're probably taking roughly a 50-50 split, unless.
Okay, what if the Legion allowed them to confer that bonus to the person they're supporting?
That would be interesting.
Then you would have dwarves in the front.
As we're talking through this, I suspect what we're going to see is only Dale heroes can lead Dale guys.
Probably.
Most likely, we've seen that consistent in every legion.
Because I think what they want you to do, and frankly, the way I would want to play it is, you've got your Iron Hills phalanx on one flank, and you've got your Dale phalanx with the knights in the front, and the other guys on the other flank, and then the two are just doing stuff side by side.
Which is probably how it happened in the books.
Yeah, I imagine there'll be some rules for the heroes.
unless the Iron Hills were out there in front, and then all of a sudden, the Knights of Dale came and ran up behind them, and jumped over the top of them.
We've seen this in the history books.
Oh my god!
Yeah,
you know what? One day I hope
they possibly go wrong.
I don't even know why I want this, but I hope one day they make a joke legion. It's just a total joke where your elves can lead over. That functionally has no purpose in the Legion, but just a battle of 5 armies Legion.
They all have swap with me.
They come with little springs behind the dwarves. They jump over them.
Keely and Keely have
swap with me. Something.
If they're in base contact at the start of a phase,
combat
they can switch places. Combat synergy.
No, I actually just want them to literally be able to take jump tests over their dwarven allies.
You know what? If anybody wants to do that against me in a game, I will allow it. I don't never say no.
How cool would it be if they did where Grinna can swap? They did it with them, so they swap places. I think that'd be kind of cool.
Well, I think they actually FAQ it to get rid of any potential actual useful application for that rule.
The swap,
yeah, because they said because what people used to do is if somebody got transfixed or something like that,
you flip them.
You'd swap
and now
them.
They can't.
You can't do that. Sorry, that was actually a useful application.
And now it's totally useful. No, so the problem I have with the swap with me thing is because it's going to be used practically. It's not a joke anymore. What'll happen is your elves will be accidentally somehow in front or flanked or whatever, and then you swap them with the dwarf. That's a useful practical function in the Legion, but not the joke we saw in the movie. So if you want to make it actually useful, yes, swap it. If you want to make it clearly a wink, wink, nod, poke at the movie, then you just make them. You can take jump tests. And specifically over dwarves.
Is there any other Legion that we're not thinking of?
I would totally do it, by the way. In a tournament, I absolutely would be I'm jumping everyone over and just watch a couple.
Imagine what those dwarves were thinking. They're we were all set. We were gonna see these guys. What are they doing? What?
I imagine they were all thinking, yeah, works for me. Let's get these guys out of here, right? They're just gonna get in our way. So well, I don't want to go on a tangent, so let's go back to lists. But
well, I mean that's the two. Oh, an Easterling Legion. Oh God,
I think that's almost guaranteed too.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay, so here's the thing: is what I'd want to see. Well, unless this is it, but I'm hoping we're getting more than acolytes.
Yeah.
Is there any?
Nothing
that says anything.
Okay.
How funny would it be if they did like you can now take acolytes with the
that's
Easterling
what we
army?
needed to make the army competitive.
Yep.
Yeah.
Easterlings are now top tier.
Yep.
Throw away your Umgers.
Yeah.
I will be so disappointed if all that came out. Like literally, if everything we've seen now is that's it, and that they just got some acolytes, I'd be like, all right, you have really dropped the ball on that. So let me give GW the benefit about knowing how much Easterlings are loved. Now we're gonna get
Shield Wall.
Never.
A Legion with Shield Wall.
Shield Wall and Phalanx. That would be interesting.
Shield Wall and Phalanx.
They would sooner die. They would never give them Shield Wall. It makes too much
sense.
sense.
The same was said about Banners for Dale.
True. Well, there's a whole story behind that.
Yeah,
Jay didn't actually do that.
Yeah. That was about justice.
Yeah, that was
what
Adam doing that at the last minute.
Yeah, that was Jay with a gun to his head.
Yeah.
What if they reduced?
We're not sure.
Yeah.
And I don't know if what do you guys think about this? But what if they allowed the Black Dragon upgrade to be free on all pikemen?
Ooh, that would be very strong.
Spicy.
Would it?
I would actually rather have the Shield Wall.
Like
Shield Wall.
If you're talking about competitiveness, Shield Wall.
Shield Wall fixes that army. I will go out and I will say it. Shield Wall fixes that army.
Take your word for it. I've never played Easterlings in my life.
I'm not an expert.
Because they don't have Shield Wall.
Exactly. That's the one reason.
No, I mean if you have three ranks of guys because that it defense 7, Shield Wall. I mean the problem they have is like a hero goes in and and wins a combat because it's got a higher fight value, and then because it's striking needing 5, just slaughters the opposition on it, and all of a sudden if they need 6s to get past that, if they need 6s to get those kills, it solves.
So Matt, and I know we're just speculating here, but my question to you would be, how with the Easterlings, how if they're mounted, they can get that +1 to. So Amdur could go up to defense 7 and his horse goes up to
Horde.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So would you do that with Kamul?
It doesn't work on foot.
So basically you're saying what if the Gleaming Horde ability worked on foot and was given to the Legion?
Well, I guess what I'm asking is
because archers would get it too. The Gleaming Horde didn't have anything to do with shields.
Oh yeah, because Amdur gets it
as well. And Dragon Knights get it.
Yeah.
So yeah, like archers would get it, your acolytes would get it, I guess.
So would you, if you did that though, would you give that benefit to Kamul? Does Kamul get that at that point? Because then he's the only model who wouldn't.
Right? Because I don't know.
That would be funny if he.
Oh yeah, actually, he wouldn't be in the Legion.
Yeah, he was the guy leading the forces in the north.
Well, I know he was leading the forces before Pelennor, but I don't know where he was in Pelennor because he was at the Pelennor.
No, he was. If I'm remembering correctly, he was the guy who was raising the evil forces at Dol Guldur.
Yeah, but
when Pelennor was happening, he moved back.
Remember this battle of Dale is happening at the same
time.
Something
to consider.
Current, so I don't know. I don't actually know lore-wise if he was there, so he might not be in it.
Something to consider is that any Legion for War in the North won't have Amdur because he was at.
He's in Pelennor. Yeah, so Amdur's got to disappear. Oh, so by default, you have to come out with something else.
Yeah,
you have to come out with a new model.
You got to have another hero. Yeah, because otherwise, what Legion do you have?
And to be honest with you, maybe this is what Easterlings have been missing is a bunch of 3 might heroes. They don't really have much might. So honestly, I wouldn't mind them coming out with like 2 or 3 heroes that have 3 might, because this is something they've always been lacking on might with this army.
But we don't need another hero.
Like an Easterling siege machine, and then the Legion was like the Helm's Deep one, right? And you give it shield.
We don't need another way home.
Don't even go there.
So basically, if you made it leaderless where you just have a bunch of captains, you got to give them a bunch of special rules now because you've intensified the might problem.
Well, one is going to become a mega captain like all the other.
Yeah. Well, but even mega captain would have given like 3 attacks and 3 wounds.
I would just like to see like alerts type model for the Easterlings.
Great.
Like that kind of model with that profile kind of thing.
And take an Easterling cataphract, cut off its head, take alerts, cut off its head, put it on.
I guess
if it's just a couple of dragon called acolytes like holding hands together. That's your character.
Give Dragon Knights fight sticks. There you go.
That's interesting. So yeah, I hadn't thought about that of Amdur not being there, and perhaps Kamul not being there.
Kamul and
Kamul's
Amdur.
a 50-50. He wasn't Guldur. It just depends on when the Legion takes place, right?
Right.
But,
okay.
All right, well then that's it. So.
All
right. So thank you for tuning into this week's episode. As always, leave any lists you have for future episodes and any ideas you'd like for us to go over as well. And we look forward to seeing you guys next week.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.